Lieutenant Hae-Jin Park stood at her tactical station on the bridge of the UES Horizon, watching the strange readings on her screen. The ship had been patrolling the Omega sector for 3 weeks, and this was the first time they had seen anything unusual. "Captain," she called out, her voice clear and steady. "I'm picking up an unknown vessel at Mark 2 to 47. It's big, at least twice our size." Captain Jin-Woo Lee walked over to her station, his boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. "Show me," he said. Hae-Jin brought up the main screen. The ship that appeared was unlike anything they had ever seen. It looked like a massive crystal, with sharp edges and smooth faces that reflected the starlight. Parts of it seemed to glow from within, pulsing with a soft blue light. "It's beautiful," whispered Yuna Kang, the science officer, as she joined them at the tactical station. The crystal ship grew larger on their screen as it moved closer. Hae-Jin's hand stayed ready on her tactical controls, but the alien vessel made no aggressive moves. "Sir," Hae-Jin said, "they're sending a signal. It looks like it's a request for communication." Captain Jin-Woo nodded. "Put it through on the main screen." The image that appeared made everyone on the bridge gasp. The alien commander looked like a living crystal statue. His body was made of clear, bluish crystal that seemed to shift and move like liquid glass. Inside, they could see pulses of light that must have been their version of a nervous system. "Greetings, Earth vessel," the crystal being said in perfect universal standard. "I am Supreme Commander Dae-Ho Kim of the Crystalline Empire. We require your assistance." Hae-Jin studied the alien carefully. In her 3 years of space service, she had never seen anything like these beings. Their tactical database had no mention of crystal-based life forms. Captain Jin-Woo stepped forward. "I am Captain Jin-Woo Lee of the United Earth Ship Horizon. How can we help?" The crystal commander's internal lights pulsed faster. "We face a threat that could destroy our entire empire. Our long-range sensors indicate that your species might have the qualities needed to help us fight this enemy." "What qualities would those be?" Hae-Jin asked, then quickly added, "Sir," remembering she hadn't been given permission to speak. But Commander Dae-Ho turned his crystalline face toward her, and she could have sworn he looked interested. "You are from Earth, correct? Classification: Deathworld 341. "Yes," Hae-Jin answered, standing straighter. Earth's classification as a death world often made other species nervous. "Then you understand survival against all odds," Dae-Ho said. "Your species evolved on a planet that should have killed you. Instead, it made you stronger." His crystal form shifted, creating patterns that looked almost like a smile. "We need that strength now." Captain Jin-Woo looked at Hae-Jin. "Lieutenant Park is our tactical officer. If you're looking for strategic help, she's one of our best." The crystal commander's body glowed brighter. "Excellent. With your permission, Captain, I would like to come aboard to discuss this further. And I request that Lieutenant Park be present at our meeting." Hae-Jin felt her heart beat faster. First contact with a new species was exciting enough, but being specifically requested for a tactical consultation, this was the chance of a lifetime. "Permission granted," Captain Jin-Woo said. "Lieutenant Park will meet you in Docking Bay 2 and escort you to our conference room." As Hae-Jin left the bridge, her mind was already racing with questions. What kind of enemy could threaten beings made of living crystal? And why did they think humans, with their soft, flesh-based bodies, could help? She would soon find out that the answer was more terrifying than she could have imagined, and that this meeting would change not only her life, but the future of both their species forever. Behind her, through the bridge windows, the crystal ship's glow pulsed steadily against the backdrop of stars, like a beacon marking the beginning of a new era in human-alien relations. Commander Dae-Ho Kim walked through the halls of the UES Horizon, his crystalline body making a soft chiming sound with each step. Hae-Jin Park walked beside him, noticing how the overhead lights played through his transparent form, creating rainbow patterns on the metal walls. "Your ship is quite sturdy," Dae-Ho said, tapping the wall with one crystal finger. Though I'm surprised by how plain it is. He-Jin smiled. We focus on function over beauty, Commander. Every part of this ship was built to survive combat. Ah yes, the human way. His voice had a slight echo, like speaking inside a glass jar. Always preparing for the worst. They entered the ship's main conference room, where Captain Jin-Woo and Science Officer Yuna were waiting. The large table was covered with holographic displays showing star maps and tactical data. Now, Captain Jin-Woo said once they were all seated, "Tell us about this threat to your empire." Daho's body darkened slightly, his internal lights dimming. We call them the Void Dancers. They are beings of pure energy who can corrupt our people. He held up his hand, and his crystal structure shifted, creating a small hologram in the air between them. The image showed a beautiful crystal city under attack. Dark, swirling shapes moved through the streets, touching the crystal buildings and crystal people. Wherever they touched, the clear structures turned black and began to crack. They can change our very structure, Daho explained. Turn us from living crystal to dead stone. Yun-Ab leaned forward, fascinated. But how do they affect your neural pathways? The light patterns inside you. They destroy them, he said simply. It is not a pleasant death. He-Jin studied the hologram carefully. These void dancers, they move in patterns. Like they're dancing, yes, but also like they're following a program. Daho finished, turning to look at her with new interest. You see it too. Most species focus only on their destructive power. Lieutenant Park has a gift for seeing patterns in combat. Captain Jin-Woo said proudly. It's why she's our top tactical officer. Daho's body brightened. Then perhaps I was right to come here. We need fresh eyes, new ways of thinking. My people are set in our ways. Like the crystal we are made of, we can be inflexible. That's why you need humans. He-Jin said, understanding dawning. We're adaptable. We evolved on a world that kept changing, so we learned to change with it. Exactly. Daho stood up, his crystal form catching the light. I request permission to station myself on your ship, Captain. As part of a military exchange, I believe working closely with your crew, especially Lieutenant Park, could help us find a way to defeat the Void Dancers. Captain Jin-Woo looked surprised. You want to serve on our ship? Won't your people object to you being under human command? Some will, Daho admitted. Many think carbon-based life is too soft, too weak. He turned to He-Jin. But I saw how quickly you analyzed those attack patterns. Sometimes strength isn't about being hard like crystal. Sometimes it's about being able to bend without breaking. He-Jin felt her face grow warm at the praise. I would be honored to work with you, Commander. Then it's settled, Captain Jin-Woo said. Commander Kim, welcome to the UES Horizon. Lieutenant Park will help you set up in our guest quarters and show you our tactical systems. As they left the conference room, He-Jin noticed Daho was glowing brighter than before. She was learning that the crystallines showed their emotions through light and color, just as humans did through facial expressions. Lieutenant, Daho said as they walked, I look forward to learning your human ways of warfare. Perhaps together, we can find a solution that neither of our species could discover alone. He-Jin nodded, already thinking of strategies. First, I want to hear everything you know about these void dancers. Even the smallest detail could be important. Behind them, the hologram of the Crystal City still floated above the conference table, its beautiful spires a reminder of what they were fighting to protect. Again, He-Jin said, standing in the ship's training room. She watched as Daho's crystal form shifted into a fighting stance. Around them, holographic enemies danced and swirled, mimicking the movement patterns of the Void Dancers. It had been 2 weeks since the Crystal Commander joined the crew. Every day, they spent hours in combat training, trying to find new ways to fight the energy beings. Your way is too slow, Daho said, his crystal body glowing with frustration. My people fight with direct power. We strike hard and fast. Hejin shook her head. And that's why you're losing. Watch this. She stepped into the holographic battlefield. Computer, start simulation. The fake void dancers swooped toward her. Instead of fighting them head-on, Hejin ducked, rolled, and weaved between them. She moved in unexpected patterns, never where the enemies thought she would be. See, she said, dodging another attack. They can't corrupt what they can't touch. Daho's internal lights pulsed with understanding. But my people cannot move like that. We are not as flexible as humans. Then we need to find a different way, Hejin said. She walked to the control panel and pressed some buttons. Computer, show us the ship's gravity controls. A new hologram appeared, showing how the ship could change gravity in different sections. Your crystal form is stronger than human bodies, she explained. But in low gravity, we can move faster than you. In high gravity. She adjusted the controls, and the room's gravity doubled. Most of the crew would have been pressed to the floor, but Hejin stood straight, though her movements were slower. Growing up on Earth, with its heavy gravity, had made her strong. Impressive, Daho said, watching her. But how does this help us? The void dancers move like they're dancing, right? They follow patterns. What if we create artificial gravity fields in the battlefield? Change the way they have to move. Daho's crystal surface rippled with excitement. Yes, if we can disrupt their patterns. They'll have to adapt, Hejin finished. And while they're adapting, we strike. Daho's body glowed brighter. This is why we needed humans. You think differently than us. Hejin smiled. Computer, run new simulation. Multiple gravity zones. Random changes every 30 seconds. The training room came alive with holograms again. This time, Hejin and Daho fought together. She moved through the low-gravity areas, quick and nimble, while he used the high-gravity zones to launch powerful attacks. When they finished, even Daho's crystal form seemed tired, his lights pulsing slower than usual. Your Earth, he said as they walked to the ship's dining hall. It's called a Deathworld because of its high gravity, dangerous animals, and extreme weather, correct? Hejin nodded. Many alien species can't even visit without special suits. We evolved to survive there, so we learned to adapt to anything. My people thought that made you weak, Daho admitted. We believed our crystal forms made us superior, but now I see that being soft doesn't mean being weak. Sometimes it means being strong enough to change. They reached the dining hall, where crew members sat eating their evening meal. Some still stared at Daho's crystal form, but most had gotten used to him. Tomorrow, Hejin said, I want to try something new. If we combine your crystal's ability to refract light with our ship's shield harmonics. Always thinking of new strategies, Daho said, his voice warm. No wonder the void dancers haven't faced anything like humans before. Hejin looked at the tactical pad in her hands, already planning their next training session. They're about to learn that the galaxy's so-called Deathworlders are a lot more dangerous than they look. Outside the dining hall windows, stars streaked by as the UES Horizon continued its patrol. Somewhere out there, the void dancers were waiting. But now, for the first time, Hejin felt like they had a real chance of winning. The emergency alarm woke Hejin from a deep sleep. Red lights flashed through the corridors of the UES Horizon as she ran to the bridge, still pulling on her uniform jacket. Report, she called out as she reached her tactical station. Void dancers, Captain Jinwoo said grimly. They're attacking the crystal colony on Bright Point. Commander Daho's people are already fighting back. The main screen showed the battle. The colony was beautiful, all crystal towers and shining spires. But dark shapes moved through the streets like angry shadows, touching everything in their path. Wherever they touched, the crystal structures turned black and began to crack. Daho stood at the command station, his crystal body pulsing with angry red light. Those are my people down there, he said. We must help them. He-Jin's fingers flew over her tactical controls. Captain, remember our training simulations? If we modify the ship's gravity generators. Do it, Captain Jinwoo ordered. Commander Kim, get your crystal warriors ready. The UES Horizon dropped into orbit around Brightpoint. He-Jin worked quickly, setting up gravity fields across the colony. Some areas would have almost no gravity, while others would be 3 times stronger than normal. Gravity fields active, she reported. Commander, your troops can use the high-gravity zones for power attacks. My security teams will take the low-gravity areas for quick strikes. Dae-ho nodded, just like in training. Crystal warriors, prepare for combat. He-Jin watched as human security teams in powered armor jumped from the ship's shuttles, using the low gravity to move incredibly fast. Crystal warriors followed, their bodies glowing with battle light, as they positioned themselves in the high-gravity zones. The Void Dancers seemed confused by the changing gravity. Their smooth dancing patterns became jerky and uneven. That was when the combined human and crystal forces struck. In the low-gravity zones, humans in powered armor zipped around the energy beings, herding them toward the high-gravity areas. There, the crystal warriors waited, using their enhanced strength to launch devastating attacks. It's working, He-Jin called out. But then she saw something that made her heart stop. Commander, look. Some of the Void Dancers had managed to touch a group of crystal warriors. The warriors' clear forms began turning black, their internal lights flickering and dying. No, Dae-ho whispered. His own crystal form dimmed with grief. Those were my best fighters. He-Jin refused to give up. Captain, permission to try something dangerous. Captain Jinwoo looked at her. What do you have in mind? The ship's shield harmonics. If we reverse them and pump them through the gravity generators, it could create an energy disruption field. Dae-ho finished, his lights brightening with hope. Yes, the Void Dancers are pure energy. If we disrupt their patterns enough. Do it, the captain ordered. But be careful. We don't want to hurt our own people. He-Jin's hands moved faster than ever over her controls. She had to get the timing exactly right. Too weak, and it wouldn't affect the Void Dancers. Too strong, and it might hurt the Crystal Warriors too. Shield harmonics reversed, she called out. Pumping through gravity generators in 3, 2, 1. A wave of invisible energy swept across the colony. The Void Dancers' forms wavered and twisted. Many of them broke apart into harmless sparks. Others fled, their dance patterns completely broken. But the victory came at a cost. He-Jin looked at the casualty reports with a heavy heart. 23 Crystal Warriors had been corrupted before they could stop the attack. We won the battle, Dae-ho said quietly, standing next to her station. But now we know the true horror of our enemy. They don't just kill my people. They turn us against each other. He-Jin reached out, almost touching his crystal shoulder before stopping herself. We'll find a way to save them, Commander. This was just our first battle. Next time, we'll be better prepared. The main screen showed the colony below. Most of it still shone beautifully in the sunlight, but here and there, black crystal structures stood like scars, a reminder of how much they still had to lose. He-Jin found Dae-ho in the ship's observation deck, his crystal form reflecting the starlight. It had been 3 days since the battle at Brightpoint Colony. The commander hadn't spoken much since then. I'd brought you something, she said, holding up a datapad. Information about Earth's history, about how we fought when everything seemed hopeless. Dae-ho turned to face her, his internal lights dim with sadness. 23 warriors, he said quietly. 23 of my people turned into dark crystal, and I knew every one of them. He-Jin sat down next to him. Tell me about them, she said. Tell me about your people. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then his lights brightened slightly. Did you know that we literally grow into our roles? He asked. When a crystal child is born, their final form depends on what they will become. He held out his hand, creating a small hologram. It showed a tiny crystal creature, barely bigger than Heijin's thumb. "This is a newborn," he explained. "Pure, clear crystal. As they grow, their structure changes. Warriors develop sharp edges and strong layers. Scientists grow complex internal patterns for storing knowledge. Leaders develop structures that can project authority through light and color." "That's amazing," Heijin said. "But doesn't that make it hard to change?" "Yes." Daho's form shifted, showing more of his warrior angles. "That is why we have such rigid roles. We cannot easily become something different than what we grew to be." In another part of the ship, Science Officer Yuna was making an exciting discovery. She ran through the corridors, her footsteps echoing off the metal walls. "Lieutenant, Commander," she called out as she burst onto the observation deck. "I think I found something." She held up her own data pad, showing complex wave patterns. "I've been studying the recordings from the battle. The Void Dancers aren't just attacking randomly. They're attracted to specific resonance patterns in crystal structures." Heijin leaned forward. "Resonance patterns, like the way crystal rings when you tap it." "Exactly." Yuna's eyes were bright with excitement. "Every crystal warrior has a slightly different pattern. The Void Dancers seem to target the strongest resonances first." Daho's body suddenly glowed brighter than Heijin had ever seen. "That's why they went after our best warriors first. The stronger we are, the more our crystal structures resonate with power." Heijin jumped to her feet, "And that's why the shield harmonics worked. We weren't just disrupting the Void Dancers, we were changing the resonance patterns they were attracted to." She turned to Daho. "You said your people grow into their roles, that your structures change to match what you become. What if that's not just about jobs? What if it's about survival?" Daho's lights pulsed with understanding. "The stronger the warrior, the more perfect their crystal structure, the more the Void Dancers want them." Yuna finished. "It's like they're hungry for that perfection. They want to corrupt it." Heijin was already thinking of new strategies. "So if we could change your resonance patterns during battle, we would be harder to track," Daho said. His sadness was gone now, replaced by hope. "But my people cannot change our structures easily. We are not like humans, able to adapt quickly." "No," Heijin agreed. "But maybe we don't have to change your structures. Maybe we just have to change how they resonate." She looked out at the stars, her mind racing with possibilities. They had lost 23 crystal warriors at Brightpoint. But now they knew something important about their enemy. Now they had a chance to save others from the same fate. "Commander," she said, "I need you to tell me everything about how crystal resonance works in your people. Every detail could be important." For the first time in 3 days, Daho's crystal form showed colors of happiness. "Of course, Lieutenant. Perhaps understanding who we are is the key to saving what we can become." Heijin stood in front of the ship's main conference room screen, looking at the faces of both human and crystal commanders. After their discovery about crystal resonance, she had spent 3 days working on a plan. Now it was time to present it. "The UES Horizon has experimental sonic weapons," she began. "We normally use them for mining operations, but with some changes, we could use them to protect the crystal warriors." Captain Jinwoo leaned forward in his chair. "Explain, Lieutenant." Heijin touched her control pad, bringing up a diagram. "The sonic weapons can create specific sound patterns. If we match these patterns to the crystal warrior's natural resonance, we can mask their signature from the Void Dancers. Like hiding them behind a sound shield," Yuna added from her seat. "The Void Dancers won't be able to find their preferred targets." Daho's crystal form sparkled with interest. "But won't this affect our ability to fight? Our resonance is part of our strength." "That's the clever part," Heijin said, changing the display. "We won't block your resonance completely. Instead, we'll create a pattern that changes every few seconds. The Void Dancers won't be able to lock onto any single warrior." The crystal commanders talked among themselves, their bodies glowing with different colors, as they discussed the idea. Heijin waited nervously. Everything depended on them agreeing to try this new approach. There's more, she continued. We've modified some of our powered armor suits for crystal warriors to wear. The suits can generate their own sonic fields. This will give each warrior extra protection. Wear human armor, one of the crystal commanders asked, his form darkening with doubt. Our bodies are not made for such things. We adapted them, Yuna explained. Each suit is custom-fitted to crystal forms. They won't restrict your movement or interfere with your natural abilities. Daeho stepped forward. I will test the armor myself, he announced. If it works, my warriors will use it. 20 minutes later, Hojin watched as Daeho put on the modified powered armor. The suit was beautiful, with clear panels that let his crystal form shine through. Small sonic generators were built into key points around the suit. How does it feel? She asked. Daeho moved his arms and legs, testing the suit's response. Strange, he admitted, but not uncomfortable. Activate the sonic field. Heijin pressed a button on her control pad. The suit hummed to life, creating a complex pattern of sound waves around Daeho's crystal form. His natural glow seemed to dance and shift behind the sonic shield. Remarkable, he said. I can still feel my resonance, but it's protected somehow, like wearing a cloak made of sound. Captain Jinwoo watched from the side of the room. This is a good start, Lieutenant, but how do we use it in battle? Heijin brought up a tactical display. We coordinate everything. The ship's main sonic weapons create a large protective field. Inside that field, warriors in powered armor have their own personal protection. We can create layers of shifting resonance that will confuse and disorient the Void Dancers. And while they're confused, Daeho added, his voice eager, we strike. Not as individual warriors, but as a combined force. The captain nodded slowly. It's risky, he said. We've never used the sonic weapons this way. If the timing is off, or if the Void Dancers adapt too quickly. With respect, sir, Heijin interrupted, everything about this war is risky. But now we have a real chance to protect the Crystal Warriors, to save lives instead of losing them. The room fell quiet. Everyone looked at Captain Jinwoo, waiting for his decision. Finally, he stood up. Begin full testing immediately, he ordered. I want every detail of this plan perfect before we try it in combat. Lieutenant Park, Commander Kim, this is your project. Make it work. Heijin and Daeho looked at each other, their determination matching. They had a plan now, a way to fight back. The Void Dancers had never faced anything like this before. The combined ingenuity of humans and the strength of Crystal Warriors. The real question was, would it be enough? Red alert sirens blared through the UES horizon as the ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The main screen showed hundreds of Void Dancers swarming around the Crystal Empire's capital world, their dark forms blocking out the starlight. All hands, battle stations. Captain Jinwoo's voice rang through the ship. This is what we trained for. Heijin stood at her tactical station, watching as more ships appeared behind them. 5 human vessels and 12 crystal ships, all equipped with the new sonic weapons. In the launch bay below, Crystal Warriors in modified powered armor waited next to human security teams. The Void Dancers are moving to attack, she reported. They've noticed us. Daeho's crystal form glowed with battle light beside her. Then let's show them what humans and Crystal Warriors can do together. Launch all fighters. The battle began. Sonic weapons from all ships fired at once, creating a massive web of protective sound waves. Inside this web, smaller ships darted back and forth, each adding their own sonic fields to the pattern. The sonic shield is working, Yuna called from her science station. The Void Dancers can't lock on to individual warriors. But the enemy was smart. They started moving in new ways, testing the sonic shield for weak spots. Some of them joined together, becoming larger and stronger. They're adapting, Heijin said, her fingers flying over her controls, changing the sonic pattern now. In space around them, Crystal warriors in powered armor fought alongside human pilots. The armor let them move in ways their crystal bodies never could before. They spun, twisted, and changed direction instantly, confusing the Void Dancers. "Look at them," Daho said proudly. "My people are learning to be flexible, just like humans." But then something went wrong. A group of Void Dancers found a gap in the sonic shield. They rushed through, heading straight for the capital city below. "No." Daho's crystal form pulsed with alarm. "Those are our nurseries down there. Our children." He-Jin made a quick decision. "Commander with me, Captain. Permission to take a fighter." "Granted," Captain Jinwoo said. "But be careful, if they breach your sonic shield." He-Jin was already running to the launch bay, Daho right behind her. They jumped into a modified fighter, built to hold both human and crystal pilots. He-Jin took the controls while Daho managed their weapons and shields. They chased the Void Dancers down through the atmosphere, weaving between crystal towers. Other fighters followed them, creating a moving net of sonic waves. "They're too spread out," Daho said. "We can't protect everything at once." He-Jin remembered their training sessions. "Then we'll do something they won't expect." "Commander, do you trust me?" "With my life, Lieutenant." "Good. Tell all crystal warriors to power down their armor. Drop their sonic shields." "What?" Daho's lights flashed with surprise. "But they'll be vulnerable." "Exactly. The Void Dancers will think they have easy targets. Order your warriors to gather near the nurseries." Understanding dawned in Daho's crystal form. He sent the order, and across the battlefield, crystal warriors deactivated their sonic protection. The Void Dancers immediately changed direction, rushing toward what looked like easy prey. "Now," He-Jin yelled. Every ship and warrior powered their sonic weapons back on at full strength. The sudden wall of sound caught the Void Dancers in the middle of their attack. Confused and overwhelmed, they couldn't escape in time. The combined sonic waves tore the energy beings apart. Those that survived flowed into space, their dark forms vanishing among the stars. He-Jin landed their fighter near the crystal nurseries. Nothing had been damaged. No warriors had been corrupted. They had won. "How did you know that would work?" Daho asked as they stepped out of the fighter. "Because you taught me something important," He-Jin replied. "Sometimes strength isn't about being perfectly formed. Sometimes it's about knowing when to look weak, so you can be strong in a different way." Above them, the capital's crystal towers shone in the sunlight, unmarked by any trace of darkness. They had saved not just the city, but the future of the Crystal Empire itself. 1 month after the battle for the Crystal Empire's capital, He-Jin stood in her dress uniform before the Grand Crystal Council chamber. The room was filled with both humans and crystal beings, their forms creating beautiful light patterns on the walls. "Lieutenant He-Jin Park," the head counselor said, his crystal form glowing with formal colors, "step forward." She walked to the center of the chamber, her boots making soft sounds on the crystal floor. Captain Jinwoo and Commander Daho stood nearby, watching proudly. "Your innovative thinking and courage saved our capital, our children, and perhaps our entire species," the counselor continued. "We once thought that humans, coming from their harsh Deathworld, would be too aggressive, too unpredictable to work with. We were wrong." He-Jin saw Daho's crystal form pulse with agreement. He had changed since they first met. His perfect warrior angles had developed subtle curves, showing how he had learned to be more adaptable. "The combined fleet proved that our two species are stronger together," the counselor said. "Therefore, we propose creating a permanent joint task force, ships and warriors from both our peoples, working as one to protect our worlds." Captain Jinwoo stepped forward. "Earth Command agrees. We need a commander for this task force, someone who understands both species and can think in new ways." He-Jin's heart beat faster as she realized what was coming. "Lieutenant Park," the captain said with a smile, "or should I say, Commander Park. The position is yours, if you want it." She stood straighter. I would be honored, sir, but I have one condition. The Crystal Council members shifted, their lights showing surprise at her boldness. But He-Jin had learned something important in these past months. Sometimes being bold was exactly what was needed. I request that Commander Dae-ho Kim serve as my second in command, she said. Our victory came from combining crystal strength with human adaptability. The task force should do the same. Dae-ho's form brightened with joy. I would be proud to serve with you, Commander Park. The council chambers filled with approving light from the crystal beings and applause from the humans. But He-Jin wasn't finished. I also want to continue developing our combined technologies, she said. The powered armor and sonic shields were just the beginning. There's so much more our species can learn from each other. Agreed, the head counselor said. We will assign our best scientists to work with your science officer, Yuna. She has already shown great understanding of our crystal nature. After the ceremony, He-Jin found herself in the observation deck of her new command ship, the UES Starbridge. Built by both species, it had crystal technology integrated into its very structure. Thinking deep thoughts, Commander, Dae-ho asked as he joined her. Remember when we first met? She replied. You thought humans were too soft to help your people. His crystal form shimmered with amusement. And you proved that being soft doesn't mean being weak. It means being able to change, to find new solutions. He paused. My people are learning this lesson. Already, some of our younglings are growing in new ways, developing forms that can adapt more easily. Evolution in action, He-Jin said, smiling. And what about you? I've noticed the changes in your crystal structure. A warrior can learn new ways to fight, he said simply. Just as a human can learn to understand crystal resonance, we change each other, make each other better. The ship's comm system beeped. Commander Park to the bridge, a voice called. We're ready for our first patrol. He-Jin looked at her friend and second in command, ready to show the galaxy what humans and crystal beings can do together. Dae-ho's form glowed with confidence. Lead the way, Commander. After all, who would dare challenge the combined strength of a Deathworld lieutenant and a crystal warrior? As they walked to the bridge, He-Jin thought about how far they had come. From first contact to true understanding, from doubt to trust, from separate species to a united force. Whatever challenges the galaxy held, they would face them together. The stars waited outside, full of new horizons to explore. And this time, they would explore them not as humans and crystal beings, but as one crew, one team, one family.